My name is Randy Hall, and I'm going to be talking about Hellschreiber, or otherwise known as Feld-Hell. And
doing a little bit of Feld-Hell digital modes. Kind of neat. First time I've ever done this.
It was a fellow's first Hellschreiber contact, and you see this stuff going by, and he says, well, that's pretty neat. It's my first QSO. So it's an old laptop. So we're going to talk about Hellschreiber here. Again, my name's Randy Hall, K7AGE. You can reach me at a real easy email address, K7AGE at K7AGE.com. I have handouts here. And I probably have enough for everybody here since the room's not completely filled. So we just start these and pass them forward or backwards. Thanks. And a little bit about me before we get started here too much. I was licensed back in '68. I had a novice. And here I am sitting at my dad's station. I was older than this when I got my novice, but when I got my novice, I couldn't use the nice fancy Invader 200 because I had to be crystal controlled and less power. So I had one of those little Miko AT1s. Anybody familiar with those from back in those days? It was a little kit, 2 tubes, $14.95. Those things go on eBay now for $250. So I think I threw it out back in the 70s. And I've been around video a long time. I built a TV camera for my electronics high school project, worked on TV remotes, and worked at a couple college studios while I was going to school. And after college, I worked for television broadcasting equipment manufacturers, Grass Valley Group, for 22 years. Then moved over to Envision, which was bought by Miranda a couple years ago, which is now owned by Belden. And I'm still trying to figure out my in to get free coax out of Belden. So we'll see. I've been posting videos up on YouTube since, was it 2006, over 6 years now. YouTube is only 7 years old. So, and ham radio on YouTube is a pretty small niche. But I have 80-some videos now, over 2.2 million total views, if you add them all up. There's over 6,400, maybe 6,500 subscribers now, and have a video I call What the Hell, and that has seen over 83,000 views. So that's in about 4 years maybe that's been posted. So what is Hellschreiber? Anybody speak German that can pronounce that? I used to see German video test gear, and I swear the width of the equipment was the width of the name. So they type in Schreiber something or other. So it's kind of translates to character image teleprinter. It was invented by Dr. Rudolf Hell, and Hell in German translates to kind of light writer, bright writer, or clear writer. And it's kind of a pun off his name when you see how the system runs. He was a pretty smart guy, involved with a lot of different stuff. He lived 101 years. I don't believe he was a ham radio operator, but he invented all sorts of things. TV camera tubes, electronic scanning, a lot of things that had to do with scanning and graphics. This electronic controlled clixograph machine was a half-tone photo engraver onto linoleum, I believe, for printing. First practical fax machine, color scanner in '63, things we take for granted today. Computerized typesetter in '65. We all do that with our, we've been doing that on Macs for 20-some years. So just all sorts of stuff. It's, spend some time and Google him and see what the types of things that he worked on. So what is Hellschreiber? It's kind of a fax mode, but there's no decoding. Anybody who sat through my PSK this morning, we talked a lot about where the tones and the bands and what's receiving and transmitting where, and we kind of got through that confusion and be able to get through that and get people to better understand that. We're probably going to go through the exact same thing here with Hellschreiber. Because it doesn't decode, you're going to do the decoding. Again, it was developed by Dr. Hell back in the late 20s. It was used by the German military during the war along with the Enigma machines. And the term Feld-Hell or Field-Hell comes from a lot of this type of use. I saw that it was used by some of the wire services into the 80s, which is pretty amazing. And it provides intelligible communications over poor circuits. And I mentioned this a couple times, and we'll see what that means. I just mentioned Field-Hell, German for, or translate basically to Field-Hell. And like many of the digital modes today, you can use this just by using the right software in your computer, and if you have a PSK or sound card interface, you're all set to go. So it just becomes a software exercise. So this was developed as an alternative to a teletype machine. So it's less moving parts, less sensitive or not sensitive to synchronizing the receiving end to the transmitting end. Much simpler radio interface. Again, it provides intelligible communications over poor circuits, and we'll see some examples. So, anybody ever have one of these things? Anybody had to fix one? Anybody hope that they never had to fix it? There's one running out front here, and if this works, you'll see what happens in the inside of one of these things. This is what you hope you never have to make work again. Count the moving parts. Get your can of WD-40 and keep it running. Yeah. I used to have one of those. Like a lot of things, 25 years ago, things like that were junk, so I took it to the dump when I moved house. Now, 25 years later, you kind of wish you held on to some of this stuff. So the Hellschreiber machine, here's several commercial examples. And if you're familiar with a teletype machine, the machine here looks like it's just the keyboard part of a teletype machine, but that's the whole thing. It's really very simple. The photo on the left is a field unit. And again, in the bottom of the case there is the machine. The motor's a pretty good size. And the stuff at the top there with the knobs and the meter is the radio interface, or maybe a landline interface. They used them both ways. And the photo up in the top right is a different machine. You can see the electronics for the interface provided up there. So let's hope this plays as well. This is a commercial machine, I believe at a German Hamfest I found. And that's the whole printing mechanism, which you see there running. And it prints on a paper tape. And that's what you get out. Kids think it's neat. Okay, so why is it simpler? Well, it doesn't send data like we're familiar with a teletype machine, a 5-bit code, or an ASCII, or these types of things. It does not send text. It does not send text as data. There's no synchronization between the ends. A teletype machine, there's start bits and stop times and clutches and things that engage when you press a key. There's none of that going on here. What it does send is a pixel, or a series of pixels, one pixel at a time. And the receiver is going to print it. So I mentioned earlier that Dr. Hell was involved with a lot of scanning type of techniques. So if we take like the number 3 and we lay a grid over it, and if we scan the grid, And in this case, from the bottom to the top, left to right, we end up with this bit pattern here across the bottom for the 7 columns. And what we're going to do is basically send information during the dark area and not send anything during the light area. And back in the 20s, before they had memory, they built memory out of mechanical things. So here would be a drum in the keyboard, and every character and number would have a column on this drum. So when you press a key, it would make contacts as the drum rotates to send out the pattern for that character. And it was able to do it by just on-off keying, like in CW, or maybe sending a tone on and off. There was various modulations, but it can be as simply as just an on-off CW type of signal. So here's the whole keyboard, and there's some mechanical inner latches there, so you can't press 2 keys at the same time. Rather limited character set, just the letters, numbers, and a couple punctuation, and I see a plus minus, a key with nothing on it. I'm not sure what the big green one on the left over there, I'm not sure if that's the one that you use to unjam the keyboard if it gets locked up. So to send it, we press a key, the thing rotates, we get a pulse out of the transmitter, hook it into the radio, and that's what we're transmitting. When we go to receive, in the printer there's a motor that pulls the paper tape through. The motor's turning this corkscrew print head, and on the print head has been inked, so it has ink on it, and underneath the tape is a solenoid, and every time it hears a signal it bangs up from underneath and it makes a dot. In fact, it makes 2 dots because it's a double corkscrew, and then it's printed. So here's a graphic that shows pressing the key, the drum is turning, makes a contact, sends out a pulse. You have your radio, transmitter, receiver link in those little boxes there. You decode that, hit the solenoid. When it gets the pulse, the solenoid bangs up from underneath. The corkscrew is turning, it has ink on it, and you're left with dots on the paper for the character. So this thing didn't print a 3, we see the dots on the paper as a 3. It doesn't know a 3 from a 4, it's just a series of dots or else pixels. That's a whole lot simpler than a teletype machine. It's really pretty clever. Okay. So let's look at some comparisons here between some of the other modes, PSK31 and Teletype, or else RTTY, things that are common on the band. Hellschreiber is about 35 words per minute system. PSK can be up to around 50. RTTY can be up to 60. So it's not high speed, but then again, it's basically meant for people typing. The bandwidth is wider. You can get a lot of PSK31s in the same space as a Hellschreiber. The duty cycle is quite a bit less, which means you can run it at higher power and not have to worry about your transmitter. Whereas in RTTY you're 100%, and PSK you're a little bit down from that because of the phase keying and such. Error correction, data redundancy, basically none for any of them. Except in the Hellschreiber, you can change the fonts and have larger fonts, which spreads the information out over a longer period of time, so hopefully you can recover it or be able to read it. Come on in, Jim. When you're receiving. Is it compatible with on-off keying like for CW? Yes. No for PSK or RTTY. They're either phase shifting or frequency shifting. Does it require a stable receiver? Not at all, which makes it lower cost. PSK, yes, you need a pretty good receiver. RTTY, you can have some drift. It's not as critical. Here's some spectrum displays. This is Feld-Hell, and the horizontal lines are at 100 hertz. The vertical ones are at 10 dB, I believe. So it shows you kind of the spectrum of a Hellschreiber. Here's a spectrum of a PSK31, and this is what you typically would see on your waterfall, the little tracks, but if you magnified that out, that would be more what a PSK would look like. You can see it's quite a bit narrower. And if we look at a teletype, it spreads out there, and you can see the two peaks there in the green for the mark in space tones. Okay, intelligible communications over poor circuits. I mentioned this several times, and this is what I mean. When the signal fades out, the text fades out. You can still read it down into almost the noise level. Here's like a AGD, which I believe is this fellow's call I see down here, somewhere else. But as the signal's taken degrade, the copy also degrades, but it doesn't start printing errors or not printing. It just kind of, gracefully fades out. It's really interesting when you see two stations on the same frequency. You'll see both of their texts go by. Okay, you can see at the bottom there it says QTH Moscow. Then when he repeats Moscow, you can see the band took a dip. Okay, two rows of text. I said that there's no synchronization between the printing end and the transmitting end. But if the motors are running off speed or a little bit out of phase compared to each other, the text will print as a slant. And the top there is the paper tape out of that video, and you can see the text is printed at a slant. You can see him holding it up there, but you can still read across, and when it runs off the edge, you can jump up a line and take and continue reading. So by having the two lines of text always sent, if your motors are off mechanically, or if your sampling frequencies of your sound card between his and yours are off, you will get the slanted text, but you're still able to read it. On that previous slide, it looks like everybody here's clock frequencies in their sound card boards were matched because it's really straight and horizontal. Where here, whoever was receiving this was running at a different rate, but it doesn't make any difference. You're still able to read it. A machine would have trouble dealing with these types of images and information. Those were the old days. Today we implement this with software and a sound card interface. The exact same thing you use for PSK, you can use for this. Just change software, or maybe change the mode in your software, and you can be on the air easily. Look at a couple of the software programs that are out there. This is from IZ8BLY, his Hellschreiber program. It's been around for a long time. You have to hunt a little bit to find it, but there's the address at the bottom. It's free. It's a Windows program. And there you can see the area screen. This is where you receive. It's not showing up here, but in your PSK programs, you have waterfalls down here. Well, this is, I guess, a river. It goes horizontal instead of vertical. And you click to tune in here, just like we did for PSK. It has a simple log built in, so you can log your QSOs. And down here we have our macro buttons where we can preload in canned text that we want to send out. Your name, your QTH, a simple breg tape, let's hope. And that's basically the interface. Another one that's becoming very popular is FL-Digi. This supports many different digital modes, including Hellschreiber. And this is open source. You can get versions to run under Windows, Mac. Mac and Linux. It's an all-in-one program. Again, it does many different modes. So if you want to switch quickly between PSK and Hellschreiber, you just go up to the menu and pick the different mode. And it's got the logging fields up at the top, pretty common. The blue horizontal is your buffer for typing. So this is where you can type ahead before going into transmit, so you can read what's coming across and answer the other guy's questions ahead of time. The waterfall display, and you can see the red width there is you click in the center, and that tunes the Hellschreiber's signal. Some control buttons at the bottom, macro buttons there in the green, brown, and blue area in the middle. So, pretty popular. Another program that's popular is the Digital Master 780, part of Ham Radio Deluxe. This is a Windows program. It's a do-everything program. Read, control, logging, digital modes, satellite tracking, slow scan. He's got everything in here. And again, since it has all these different modes, you can easily switch around. And this is transitioning, I believe, from a free program to a commercial program. I'm not sure where that is in the process. I really don't use this, but it's very popular. You see a lot of people using this software on the air. And same type of thing. It's got a log window. It's got the waterfall, macro buttons. You have a lot of control of what sub windows appear up here on the screen. It's, to start off with, the first program I showed you is really simple. This gets, and also the FL Digi, get a little more complex with more things to get set up. Yes, hopefully this will play. And people do build machines from scratch today to receive Hellschreiber. So this is a K7AGE. So here's his corkscrew, the solenoid down here, the motor spinning, ink on there from somewhere. Even looks like he makes his own roll of paper tape. Looks like it's been cut on a saw. And there it is, printing at an angle. I'm not sure if he's adjusting phase or maybe an amplitude or something, but let me play that again. So if you're mechanically inclined, you can build your own receiver. Here's his electronics interface. So who's going to go home and build one? Oh, not you.
What are we hearing here?
What you're hearing there is a solenoid.
Okay.
Banging.
Sounds like radio fax.
Well, it sounds like what the sending unit sends. You hear that clack, clack, clack on the air. Well, it sounds kind of the same thing, but mechanically and with the receiver. So, to get on the air, HF radio, it's upper sideband mode. Somebody asked this morning about lower sideband in the lower bands, upper sideband in the higher bands. Usually in the digital modes, it's always upper sideband, independent on the band that you're working. Software with the computer, sound card interface. If you saw my PSK, or there's just all sorts of websites to figure out how to do that. You can build your own. There's all sorts of commercial interfaces. Finding the activity can be a challenge. It's not as popular as PSK. So there's a club. There's a club for everything, I think, but there's a Feld-Hell club. And one of the things they do is sponsor and schedule monthly sprint contests. And this is a good time where you can spend 2 hours in a contest. It's a short contest. And it gets a bunch of guys on the air, and you can play around with this. Lots of stations. It's a short contest. You don't have to. It's not a big weekend, type of effort. You can get on. It's fun. It's easy. You can join the club and you get a Feld-Hell number. I think mine's 704 or something. And it's best to find the website just by Googling Feld-Hell Club. And so that generates a lot of activity. Excuse me. You find them, 20 meters is the most popular band. They're typically just below the PSK guys, around 63, or you may find them up around 73. And there's some frequencies, and it's in the handout, I think, too. I had the frequencies. And, there's a calling frequency, and they'd ask you to move and that type of thing. But here's what it sounds like. So what we do today is key a tone on and off. So now you know what that is when you hear it on the air. There's a couple sites that do spotting. This is the first one I found. Actually, last Saturday I was putting my presentation together, and I thought I should try this again. It's been 3 or 4 years since I made a Hellschreiber QSO, and I'm going to stand up in front of Pacificon and talk about this. So I fired up my K3. I had to go get the software to even have the software on my newer computer, which is a year old now, and dialed up 14063. I have software on the computer that I can record the screen. I turned that on, and I heard a guy on, how perfect can this be? I need it right now, and there's somebody calling CQ, and I grabbed his call, and I answered him back, and it's just one of those magical moments that we all kind of think is really neat in ham radio when you hear your call coming back from the other guy, and there was K7AGE printing out, and we had a nice 25-minute QSO, so I felt better that I was able to make this work again, and he actually spotted me. I was talking to N0IU Scott, and he spotted me there at, it was 5 hours after whatever at the time here. It was about, before noon, I think. So anyway, there's a couple different websites you can go to see who's on, or maybe scare up some activity, saying that you're out there, you're calling CQ or whatever, and scare up some people. Again, the Feld-Hell Club contests are a good time to get on. So why do this? It's easy. It gives you a chance to try something new. That's what I enjoy about coming to Pacificon and the forums. I sit through stuff that's new for me, and I get interested, and I go home and do something new and try it. So here's your opportunity, and now I've learned about it, to go home and give this a try. It's interesting to watch that text printing. It's just kind of a neat thing to see that appearing on the screen. Again, if you're into PSK, just change the mode in your software, or load up the different software and go look for the different area on the band and see who you can scare up. Again, the contests they have once a month or 2 hours. It's easy to set aside a couple hours and get on there where there's a bunch of people, and see where you can work. And I just think it's a fun, kind of neat mode. It's based on a very simple mechanical system that was designed almost 80 years ago, and it's been brought up to date by guys devoting their time to write this software for us and putting it up on the web for free. So finished up early here. So again, you can reach me at K7AGE at K7AGE.com. I'm going to give thanks to Frank and for SPP. That was his animation and a couple other graphics that I stole from his PowerPoint, which is 120 slides long. So I didn't use his PowerPoint today. But he has a lot of data, a lot of graphics, a lot of animation, a lot of text, and his website is Hellschreiber.com. So he is like the place where everything exists. So that's it. Let me just fire up a video since I recorded that QSO. We can just let that run in the background here. So, while you can watch this, we can talk about it, answer me questions. We have close to a half hour yet. Go ahead.
Yeah, about it.
Okay.
Yeah, by the way, thank you for your videos on YouTube.
Thank you.
It's been really a lot of fun. I'm really interested in Hellschreiber. I'm new ham.
Okay.
I've played with it. I've actually recorded the output from Feld-Hell
Okay.
into a handheld voice recorder.
Sure.
And then played it back through 900 megahertz walkie-talkies, just microphone to speaker.
Sure.
And vice versa, and it comes through great. So
Great.
It's very, I think a really reliable protocol.
Yeah.
But two questions. One is on the sprint. How does that work? If I wanted to get involved with that, I would go to the club and would I become a member of that club first?
Yeah, because one of the things they typically exchange during a contest is your Feld-Hell number. So yeah, you can go to their website ahead of time, and it's free. Just sign up, and they assign you a number, and that's it. You know, and they're during the contest. He runs different types, so it'll change what the exchange is. But typically, your Feld-Hell number is one of the pieces of information that you exchange.
Okay, and then I do that, and then I get in the air, and so I would already know what frequency to listen to. It was 063.
Yep.
And then, so how would that work? So who transmits first, and is everybody?
It's a contest. Just go for it. CQ. Just find a empty spot. So here's, the waterfall turns sideways, the river. Here's his signal, and it's click tune. So I've tuned to that. So now my audio tones will match his audio tones to go through the sideband transmitter, and that's where I'll be transmitting. And here's like the filter bandwidth of your sideband filter. So if I wanted to call CQ there, I just click there. Those lines will drop down and go for it. And then you'll see, you probably have a macro with your CQ Feld-Hell contest. And then you can watch his text coming across. And this line here is where your transmit ahead buffer. So when you see his call, you can start typing that in, DE, your call, and just go back and forth. And
So I would start transmitting, or I would start watching on the waterfall for the Hellschreiber visual indication.
You'd see something pop up, you click on it. If he's calling CQ, you quick get his call into the buffer, and as soon as he goes K, you hit transmit, and hopefully you beat the other guy. But what he may be seeing is 2 or 3 people at the same time. So now it's the strongest or the blackest signal is probably the one that he's going to pick out.
Okay.
That's where it kind of gets interesting in a pileup.
So
The dots pile up.
Well, when you're doing this, so I'm in San Francisco, and then these other folks could be anywhere in the world, or is it
Yep.
the United States?
It's probably primarily the United States, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see some DX on there too. So you never know.
And then the next slide that you showed there was the spotting.
Yeah.
Hellschreiber spotting.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I go to that, it's always 8 or 9 hours old. So does that mean I should get up earlier in the morning,
Or get on and call CQ and spot yourself and put some fresh data on the spotting side.
I mean, is there something about the band or the combination, or why is it always 20 meters?
Well, 20 meters opens and closes during the day and night, so maybe you're catching it when it's closed. You're probably just catching it when there's no activity. There's not as much Hellschreiber activity as compared to PSK. If you tune down to 70, you'll probably hear a bunch of stations. So I got lucky that Saturday. This guy was calling CQ, and I think during the QSO here, there's actually another station appear here. So there's 3 of us on, or 4.
Randy, the time is in UTC, so it's 8 hours.
Oh, okay.
So you're not making episode, are you?
probably,
The
so
times here are all in UTC, so they're 8 hours ahead of us.
No.
it says age plus 8H. So does that mean that whoever logged in did it 8 hours ago compared to now?
Yeah, that's the way I would interpret
I
that.
don't think so. This looks like it's converting the 8 hours we're behind UTC to current time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's confusing because it said like 5 hours ago. Yeah,
I mean, the website must know it now.
yeah,
So I assume that it's rendering that in real time.
yeah.
So that is confusing. But that could explain it if it's there 8 hours. It's only 8 hours. So the idea for that site is you have a QSO in Hellschreiber, or you observe one, then you would go type into that site.
You could, sure. It just lets the world know that you and somebody else was on, and if you look at that site, you go, oh, somebody's on there now, I'll go tune. Maybe when they end, I'll send out one of the guys' call signs, see if I can grab one of the 2 stations and have a QSL, you know.
So it's just so everybody would type into that site.
Yeah,
I see. Okay, thank you.
Don't make it harder than it is. Around 40 meters, around 070, you'll see PSK guys there. Set up Hellschreiber and call the site out. And one of them will just switch the mode over and they'll talk to you. And you recognize it by ear more than anything else. Don't
Yeah.
hear the waterfall as much. You hear that funny little chirpy thing by ear. And so, you know, try 40 meters, anywhere around RTDY or PSK. And they'll switch modes and they'll get you.
Oh, okay.
That's an excellent point. It's fun how many times you'll start at PSK 31 and somebody will say, oh, let's try PSK 63, or let's go to Olivia, or let's try something else. So that happens all the time. And y'all can really change frequency, you can do it right there.
So you'd agree if you do that in the PSK 31, you'd have that.
Yeah, don't stay on there. I mean, don't
Yeah.
do really there because that gets people upset. Take up a lot of bandwidth.
there's a lot of people get upset over little things, so
So if you do it around 10 meters at night,
nobody's going to be upset.
In the world of data, AmTOR and all the different data modes, what's the most reliable? Or is that kind of a gooey
Oh boy.
question?
Pactor.
Everybody else's opinion.
Yeah, typically you want something that's really reliable. It's either going to have forward error correction,
Right.
or it's going to have a handshaking.
Right.
This is open-ended. It has no idea if the other end got it. You know, PSK has no idea if the other end got it.
AmTOR?
AmTOR,
Well, backdoor is
yeah, poor man's,
Pactor?
yeah, Pactor,
Pactor?
you know, Pactor 1, the public version,
Right.
If you do it DXX Olivia, it's just incredible.
DXX Olivia,
You'll work stations you can barely see on the wall.
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
I'm looking at 2 dedicated stations where we know the I was going to try it on VHF first, get everything synced up, and then
yeah. Well, up on 2 and 450, you could use plain old packet, because that makes a connection, it's doing the checksums, and it's repeating for any errors, and it'll get through. Packet on HF, it runs at 300 baud instead of 1200. Any little error causes it to retransmit, so it just sits there, try before it accepts. So it really doesn't work super well on the HF bands.
but if I wanted to do it to test things out, the equipment aspect of it, just put it on a VHF radio.
Yeah,
And 2 stations as long as you're within
sure.
simplex range.
Yeah, the radios really don't care. It's just audio that's going out.
Right.
If you put it on FM, of course you're going to tie up that whole FM channel for just this.
Right.
And it's going to probably have pretty much perfect print because you're going to be quite often full quieting or very strong signal. So it ends up looking very closed circuit on something like that. But there still could be an error, the system wouldn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
How much power is typically used at you said it takes a load every second?
I was running 100 watts. He may say in here somewhere how much he was running. I don't know if he was running about 50. I don't think you want to run this at 5 watts. It'd probably be really faint. So.
Right. And does the software intentionally use a different font depending on who's transmitting?
No.
Or is that something you must set up?
Yeah, you can select different fonts. You can see he and I are using different fonts here.
So like if you have 3 guys going at one time, I mean, chances are good you'd be able to tell the difference.
Possibly, yeah. Or you may be able to tell the difference because of the slants.
True.
You know, one guy may be going this way and the other guy is going that way.
Is there a standard abbreviation like HL or HS or like that?
For,
Well, just for the mode, like RY for regular teletype or?
just Feld-Hell or FH. You may see it spotted as FH for Feld-Hell. Abbreviations while you're sending information, use whatever is common. Q signals, Morse code, you know, I don't care. Anything's.
So when you set the font, you're setting on the transmit side, and then the receiving side sees your font.
Right.
That's the whole idea, right? I mean,
He just sees dots by dots coming in, and where there's a signal, it makes a black dot, and when there's no signal, the thing is just moving and it ends up with a white area. There's no intelligence to the system beyond. It's just putting dots on tape.
what's your experience with this? Is I guess Feld-Hell, kind of lower speed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that operators will go up to 80, Feld 80, I think it's called?
I really don't know. Haven't had that much experience switching modes, and maybe some of the other guys who have used this. I think everybody pretty much defaults to this type of thing. Yeah, there are some fonts like for DX, which I think are like wider, and some things like that, which you may use if you're trying to work some DX. But yeah, this is what the program did out of the box, basically. That's what I have running here.
How about the actual speed of sending characters? There's 5 or 6 different Hellschreiber speeds.
I don't know if there's different speeds. You guys that are familiar with it more?
Different data.
Yeah, there's some different modulation techniques. There's a PSK, Hell, and some other things, and they're typically up there in the menus. But
Yeah, if you look at FLDigi, where you choose Feld-Hell, then right below that there's faster
okay,
Hellschreiber mode.
I would just use the defaults. Unless you establish a contact and maybe you want to try something else, but you know, yeah, the common mode is what you want to start with. Yeah.
You're typing all of this, but are there macros that you use at the
Yeah.
beginning before you?
Yeah, there could be. In fact, this software, I just loaded it, and then all the macros are empty, so I didn't even have time to put my call sign in. And my little rant about macros is that, he's heard this morning, a lot of the either PSK or maybe this and some other modes ends up, the QSO ends up being an exchange of macros. Yeah, and here we're having a conversation. We're chatting back and forth. He picked up on that I lived in Grass Valley. He worked at a PBS station, had a Grass Valley switcher. He had, I mentioned my videos, and he says, yeah, I think I remember seeing those from a while back. And I tell him I'm recording this, and it's up on YouTube, and he's watched his signal at my station now. So he's kind of enjoyed that. So you know, the macros are fine for the things you want to send out routinely. I don't like these great big, my opinion, I don't like these great big brag ones that are really long. Macros are handy for people who do not speak English, but they're allowing, you know, to have PSK and other mode conversations with people who do speak English. But, you know, we had a nice, I don't know, 20 or 25 minute chat here.
I can say, get off frequency, tune a little bit, see if you can hear anybody, so just start calling
CQ.
That's all you can.
Yeah.
You go to the club, join the club, get your number, and they have a little contest, not really a contest, but it's a way to get on there, and you take your grid square number.
Okay.
For points.
Ah.
You get a certain point level, you get your silver level, then gold, platinum. So you get on there and you call CQ grid square.
Okay.
You get all kinds of guys coming back, giving you the grid squares, and that way you meet people and
Sure, there you go.
and open, get going.
And then the points are based on the distance between the grid squares, I imagine, so it must calculate.
You take the numbers,
Oh, okay,
you take the numbers, and you know, 95 points.
okay.
Add one up,
And that way, if you're on there, you're not just tuning around, you know, buddy.
Yeah.
This is a great confidence builder if you don't type very well. Because the transmission is so slow that you can use your backspace.
Oh, if you watch me in here, I'm backspacing a lot. Yeah. Oh, as long as it doesn't get to that point in the buffer, you can still backspace. Of course, you got to type it all over again. You can probably click in there and correct, but once it's transmitted, it's not like PSK. I can't back up the printer at the other end.
I read on one of the forums where you were talking to a guy about using an iPad.
Yeah.
Did you work that out? Or did you?
I think he was in New Zealand or Australia.
In fact, I was upstairs after the lecture looking around, and I saw a conversation where he was saying, oh, just do this and this.
Right. He was building a little board, and when I was in conversation with him a couple months ago, he was going to rev the board, and now I've seen on one of the many mailing lists I follow that he has a new board out, and he was looking to see how many people wanted them for like $45, and all these guys were coming back on the Yahoo group saying, yeah, I want one and I want one, because what he did was come up with a little audio detection thing in there to do push to talk to key the transmitter.
Right, because I noticed that was the sticking point on that.
Yeah. Now, if you go in with your mic or sometimes on the back, you can use the box on the radio to transmit. Some of the radios, when you go in the back, the box is not able to key the transmitter. So.
Has anybody else been able to use an iPad on data?
Yeah, the guy's name is Bob Deluxe. But I got one of his things that actually works pretty well. I use it on my iPhone.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of fun to take a computer. I can pull with the audio and use programs on iPad.
How did you work out the keyer?
Pretty well. I had to adjust the audio on the radio to get a computer PGT.
Okay. I'll see after class.
Yeah, I think the reason he built the little push to talk in there is he didn't have to maybe play with the audio levels to get the box to work, but maybe not be modulating enough or modulating way too much. So that it can be a balance that can be difficult to work out sometimes. So, but yeah. Who's going to go home and try this? Yay! I'm looking for something here. I don't know what. Oh, yeah. See, here's another signal appeared. Any more questions?
What was the freak again?
14063, just below the PSK.
Only a crowd of hands can sit here to watch this.
Yeah. And then the 40 meter frequency, where's?
7.0, 60.
60. Okay, 60 to 70.
Right around the PSK people.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you slide it for a second.
Yeah, if you go to the PSK band, the guy probably doesn't have a Hellschreiber to come back and yell at you for being up there. So it's supposed to be fun, right? Well, that's all I have. Thank you for coming today. And if you want to watch the rest of the QSO, it's on YouTube. If you have trouble sleeping or else if you don't have a life, you can watch that. Thank you.
Really, I know on Ham Nation they said that